Hello everybody and welcome to the Daily Retro. I'm Retro Mark, and you know what? Today I'm going to talk about me and only me and not the world around me, but it's just me. Why me? Because I think everybody needs to get to know me a little bit better than what my videos have been portraying. First off, I don't know anything about production whatsoever, and it's pretty current in my videos. I have no idea, so everything's hands-on learning for me. So everybody goes, I've told everybody I don't really know Photoshop, and they're like, oh, you don't know Photoshop? I'm like, no, not really. And so it's like editing videos and stuff takes a very, very long time, and I'm not very good with it. So every video I do actually gets a little bit better each time. It's not perfect, but it's not horrendous, so it's kind of horrible. But I don't ever like them when they come out, but I'm hoping you guys do. I mean, I've heard that if you don't like something as an artist or whatever it is, usually it's really good. I don't know if that's a good saying or not. I don't know, but I don't even know what I'm talking about. Let's see. I'm going to Rose State College right now, and I'm majoring in MLT, Medical Lab Technician. So right now I am in school, and I will be in school for another year and a half, and then I graduate, hopefully, God. So it's towards the end of the year, so everything's getting a little hectic right now, and so I'm trying to get out some videos. I know I haven't done this podcast in forever, or video log. What do you guys want to call it? I don't know. You know, I really don't know the difference anymore. You know, so but a little bit about the videos I like to make. So I like to make videos on really, really obscure gaming, and I don't see a lot of people that do what I'm trying to do. I mean, I'm pretty sure they do it a little bit. If they are doing it, they do it a lot better than I do. I kind of take off of LGR a little bit, you know, because I see him going into a lot of the old video games, whatnot, and that's really awesome that he does stuff like that. And he does, you know, quite a bit of games that I've played before, but I kind of wanted to see if I can get into deeper, more obscure, crappy games. So when I mean crappy games, I'm trying to take off of a little bit more like, I guess, AVGN, because he's a really big influence on me, although I don't, you know, I don't want to cuss as much or do anything, but I want to express my opinions of how kind of bad these games are or how good they are. I know it doesn't really make much sense, but hear me out. So some of the games I like to portray, like Die Vampire Scum, which is one of my more recent videos I did, which absolutely nobody watched, and that's okay, because, you know, I don't expect a lot of it out of anybody knowing what that game is. But it was developed by what is it, TCR, TC Testing Designs, and it was just basically a game where a first-person shooter where you just threw stakes at vampires that were in coffins or whatever it was. And so that game alone, nobody knows. All right, and if you do know it, then you know what it came off of. It was off of the CD, A Ton of Games, which was by ISV, International Software Values, who did a whole ton of freaking, you know, games that you could buy like at Walmart or Target, and it came with like 500 games. It was like, it's the equivalent of today's 500,000 games on one CD, which are really awful games, which I do plan on doing one of those here soon, but with time constraints of college and, you know, doing all of this, plus I've got 2 kids and a wife, and I'm just kind of like, oh, and I do have a full-time job. So doing everything plus this, I mean, I love doing this kind of stuff because it's fun, although I don't have any real subscribers, or I don't have like a lot of people watching, but that's okay, because, you know, from watching other YouTubers and, you know, people talking, they say that, you know, it just takes time to get your name out there and whatnot, and I'm real impatient. I want people to see it now. I want everybody to come and see how awesome I am, but you know, I'm not very awesome, so but yeah, you know, college is a real time constraint right now because, you know, I've got a lot of studying to do. I've got like 3 exams that are coming up, and of course, and I've got my finals, and I'm like, oh god. So trying to get this podcast out. Plus, I want to do a review on the Justice League, but I'm kind of not jumping on the bandwagon right there because I'm always behind. So, yeah. So my reviews, I don't necessarily want to review a game. I just want to talk about a game. So it's kind of hard to talk about a game without reviewing it. And so if I start reviewing a game, I'm sorry. I want to speak more positively about these games, and I don't want to sit here and do negative reviews, even though a lot of people like negative reviews. I want to do something more positive on the games that are out there. So when it comes to like obscure gaming, I don't know if you guys have heard of a game called like Exile. I know it goes under another name nowadays. It's like it starts with an A or something. I can't remember. But there was Exile 1, 2, and 3. And it was like the big developer back then, or not developer, but I guess the publisher, if you will, was Webfoot Technologies. And so they kind of pushed out a lot of games. Crazy Gravity was one of them. I did that. You know, I did a review on that one. There's Exile. I think Delta Hydra was one. A real popular one nowadays, it's still got a real popular community going on, is Draw Deadly Rooms of Death. That's still going on to this day, and that was developed back in like 94, 95. And so I like doing games such as that, and they're really old games that just have no history anymore, like absolutely no history. Nobody plays them, so when I do play them, you know, hopefully I can, you know, jumpstart your memories, like, oh, hey, I remember that game, you know, and I may not say something great about it, you know, there might be something good, but there may not be something, you know, great. But, I mean, for the time, you know, some of these could have been games that some developers, you know, that went, I guess, and this is just, hell, I don't know, I'm just putting this way out there, so take it with a grain of salt. These could be games that some of these people that have done Gears of War 4, you know, or, you know, these major games we've done now, these could have been games that they have made, and it could have just been some fat guy in a basement going, haha, here's this and whatnot. But ISV basically took all those basement gamers games and put them on a disc and said, here, we'll just pay you probably 5 cents, if that, to do whatever. So, but you know, another thing is, I used to like anime a lot, and I wanted to review some anime, but I'm not going to get to that. I don't think I'm ever going to get to that because I kind of jumped off the bandwagon of anime, and you know, it kind of had a big resurgence recently, and I think that had to do with Dragon Ball. What is it? The new Dragon Ball series, Super, and then Naruto. But like I started getting into anime when I was like probably 15, and thanks to Toonami, you know, on Cartoon Network, which, you know, I watched. I don't watch anymore because I don't have cable, because I'm like, I don't have enough time to watch TV at all. So, you know, Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, Tenchi Muyo, those are like my top 3 because that's the ones that I got into, like really got into. I remember rushing home. Oh my god, I remember the most vivid memory, right, was running home from high school. Yeah, no joke. This was back in high school. This is like 2001. Yeah, 2001, 2002. And I remember on Toonami watching Dragon Ball Z, and at the very end of Dragon Ball Z, this is when Goku first turned Super Saiyan on in the Frieza saga, and you're like, oh my god. I remember after high school running home, you know, so I could turn on the television, watch Dragon Ball Z. Hopefully I had enough time, you know, and I was like, holy crap. And of course, you know, it took like 3 or 4 episodes for him to turn Super Saiyan, but when he finally did, it was like, boom! You're like, whoa! That was awesome. Oh man, it was really cool. You know, Sailor Moon, I like the old stuff. I am currently watching Crystal because, hey, it was one of the first animes I've watched, and I was like, oh, interesting. But in terms of anime, I'm very picky, I guess, and, you know, I don't just watch any anime. I don't just go, oh, hey, here's this, here's that, you know, this is cool, let me just binge watch all this stuff. I'm pretty particular. I guess I like really old anime, I guess 80s and 90s, because that's when anime was like dark and gritty. So like, oh, man, I gotta think of one. I mean, like, I know, like, everybody's like, oh, well, that's Inuyasha and Dragon Ball Z. Well, yeah, I like those. I like Inuyasha. But I'm trying to think. Like Galaxy Express 999. If you guys ever heard of that one, that's a good It's good anime. You know, was it Case Closed? That's good. But I'm trying to think of some really good. Oh, Akira. Akira. I love Akira. That was a good movie. I like cyberpunk. I like that dark, gritty cyberpunk. I also like Fist of the North Star. That stuff was really good. I like both iterations. You know, I like the old '80s version. I like the new one, the '90s version. I hear they're coming up with another one, or if they already did, I don't know. 'Cause I don't really keep up with it. So, but there's some other anime and whatnot. I like. Oh man, like Tenchi Muyo was one of my favorite, and it's still my all-time favorites. And I heard that there's a new show coming out. Like I know Tenchi. I don't know. So, anyways. I really like Tenchi Muyo just because it was the space pirates and whatnot, you know, space adventures like sci-fi and stuff. Even though I tell you I like cyberpunk and stuff like that, it was just that was so great. It was, but anything like that's related to Tenchi, like something similar to it, I'm not going to go, oh hey, well this is similar, let me watch it. I'm gonna be like, because like the newer stuff today is not. I don't like the animation. You know, I just don't think there's like a lot of detail. Everything's got to have like gigantic eyes and real bright colors and whatnot. And I'm like, man, no, it's just too happy for me. You know, I like that dark and that grit. See, that's what I kind of like. And so I mean, like stuff like that, like Ghost in a Shell. Oh, speaking of the movie Ghost in a Shell, I did like, and I know like some of you are probably like, oh God, you're an idiot. No, it was good. It was good. It was like scene for scene shot, right, of the anime, but it was pretty good. I liked it. I thought it was interesting. But you know, stuff like that. I like that dark, gritty stuff. And there's some other things out there like Blood Rain. If you guys have ever heard the movie Blood Rain, I think it came out in the like early '80s, late '70s, maybe. I mean that's a nasty, nasty anime. That's like top. That's like what's that Ninja Scroll in terms of animation? I think it's a little bit more grittier. Animation actually, I think it's a little bit more grittier, and it's definitely the storytelling and the music like just compiles together, and you're just like, wow, it's just amazing. It's super amazing movie. If you guys haven't seen Blood Rain, check it out. I mean, definitely try and find it. It's really good. Now I tell you, I kind of like that super violent kind of stuff, but there's you know a limit to what I like. Like, I'll watch hyper-violent films, but when it comes to, there's just some things I can't watch, like in anime, like that gory stuff. I just can't do that because that just turns my stomach. I guess because it's the animation, I'm just like, whoa, and whatnot. Somebody, you know, one of my coworkers, he recommended me to watch, what was it called, Danganronpa. And I was like, man, I don't know, because like I said, I'm pretty particular in my anime, right? And so I'm like, Danganronpa, that just sounds ridiculous. Like the title just sounds retarded. So I'm just like, whatever. And he was like, you really need to watch it. If you like hyper-violent stuff, Mark, you're gonna really like it. And I was like, and he showed me a couple of scenes, and he was like, yeah, this is what it's like. And I'm like, I was like, it's not really all that hyper violent, but I mean, I was like, okay. So I went ahead, switched on Hulu, and I found I guess the first one, and I watched it. And you know, I was pleasantly surprised that I really liked Danganronpa. Am I gonna watch the rest of them? Probably not. I don't know. It was a good experience, but I'm not like, oh God, it was like super great. I gotta watch the other ones and whatnot. So I mean, right now I'm kind of currently watching Boruto since I've watched, you know, all of Naruto Shippuden. Now it's Boruto, so I'm pretty hooked on that. I'm trying to watch Dragon Ball Super because I'm a huge fan of Dragon Ball Z, but of course, you know, there's no streaming rights right now for it, and hopefully there will be. So if there is, please let me know in the comments below, because I kind of want to know when that's ever coming out. And I know that, you know, people are streaming them online and stuff like that, and I really don't want to do that because, I don't know, I just don't feel like I want to get in trouble for doing that, and I don't want to watch English subtitles. So that's another thing. I do like watching English subtitles on anime I've never seen before. When it comes to anime I've seen before in English, I can't watch it in Japanese. Mainly because I guess it's a conflict. I mean, I'm pretty sure some of you guys have had that before. So, I mean, like, when it comes to, like, Mobile Suit Gundam, which I'm a huge fan of, not all of them are my favorite, but the Universal Century is definitely my favorite. So, like, I like Gundam Wing and stuff like that, but Universal Century is my favorite. So you know, that's that whole series in that era. So I can watch, you know, some of it in Japanese, but I can't watch all of it. Like, I guess like the original Mobile Suit Gundam I'll have to watch in English, because when I watched it in Japanese, I was like, oh man, this is pretty awful. And even in English, you know, it wasn't even really much better, but, you know, I guess I preferred in English. But I watched Zeta, Double Zeta, and that was all in Japanese, and I was like, you know, this isn't too bad. And then, you know, subsequent more. So if I haven't seen it, then it's Japanese. You know, if I have already seen it, then it's probably more or less going to be in English. So, but yeah. So as for anime, I'm pretty particular. So old stuff, really old stuff. And if you guys got recommendations on some really good older anime and whatnot, put them in the comments below, and I will definitely try my best to check them out, because I like that old, dark, gritty sci-fi, you know, cyberpunk stuff. Even if it's just sci-fi fantasy, you know, I'm cool with that. You know, definitely like that kind of stuff. So I know that you guys see right here behind me. You know, I try to get the shot in right here of all of this video game stuff, and I know it's not a lot. So that's something I want to talk about right here. Is so the reason why there's so many video games, you see, you know, there's a lot of people out there that do a lot of gaming gaming on YouTube and Twitch and stuff like that. And, you know, I'm trying to get into that, and it's really hard, because I don't know what to say half the time, you know, to people, you know, because I'm so focused on a video game. So I'm not like, oh, hey, you know, this and that. So I'm always trying to see how other people are communicating with people. But so I didn't get my first console until God, man, I must have been like 10 years old, and it was the Nintendo 64. That was my very first console I can ever really remember getting from my parents, and that was for Christmas. It came with 007, you know, GoldenEye, and that was great. I remember going psychotic for that. It was awesome. I mean, I've had hand-me-downs, and, you know, my cousins, they always had stuff like that. You know, they've had the Nintendo, they had the Sega Genesis, and I think those were all hand-me-downs. And that was pretty cool. I remember playing Sonic the Hedgehog and Vector Man the most on my Sega Genesis. When it was the Nintendo, it was Super Mario and Super Mario Brothers 3. I never really played, you know, much else. I remember playing, I think, RoboCop and a couple other, you know, few NES games. It wasn't, it just wasn't my system I really grew up with. And, you know, so I got a Sega Genesis. Well, my cousins gave us the Sega Genesis because they were like, oh, we're old enough, we don't play video games. It's like, oh, cool, whatever. So, I mean, I played Sonic the Hedgehog and Vector Man. So I never really had a Super Nintendo. I knew other people who did, and they all had, like, Super Mario Kart, Super Mario World. And I knew one person who had Star Fox, but that was the only games, like, I can vividly remember, you know, people having the most of. It's not like, you know, today where you see on YouTube, oh, I remember having this, that, I had all these games, had this game, and whatnot, you know. I mean, I don't know how much of that is actually played on, or how much, you know, people actually had. I mean, like, I can see, like, older people, like, you know, I watch GameSack a lot, and, you know, Dave and Joe, when they say, oh, I remember when Super Nintendo came out, I bought mine. And I can see them saying that they bought theirs, but, you know, people my age are going, oh, yeah, I remember, you know, when Super Nintendo came out. You see, I'm 31, and, you know, I remember people going, oh, I remember when Super Nintendo came out, and, you know, I had this game, and I went out and bought this game. It's like, well, when you bought that game, you were probably 8 years old, dude. And it's like, I don't see you paying $60 for a Super Nintendo game back then, unless you mowed a bunch of yards. So, you know, so half the time, you know, I take everything with a grain of salt with what everybody says. But all of the stuff you see here, I've bought, and so man, the collection I have has kind of a story to it that goes along with, you know, having the game systems and whatnot. So when I got my first N64 from my parents for Christmas and whatnot, this goes up to the events of that. You know, I became addicted to video games. I mean, seriously, like, it was a pretty big thing. Yeah, it was pretty big. I remember playing, you know, GoldenEye, God, like 6-7 hours a day, and then playing Perfect Dark for even longer than that. You know, I mean, of course, I had friends, and, you know, I went out and played with them. You know, we all played and did our stuff, and hung out all the time, but most of the time whenever I got home from school, it was just like, oh, you gotta play on that video games, gotta get on the video games. And so we'd rent video games, I'd constantly beat them all. So I mean, it was a long time. And I remember my parents telling me like, hey, you look white as a ghost and whatnot. It's because I was stuck on a video game for so long. And so for the longest time, going up to the school was kind of hard because all I wanted to do was play video games. Hanging out with all your friends, that's all you talked about was video games or the latest movies or whatever. So, so I had, it went from the N64 to, I finally, I saved up enough money from mowing lawns and, doing getting a part-time job. I finally saved up for a PlayStation 2, and I bought a GameCube as well. So, and that just went further with my addiction into video games, and it just went further and further, and so, and I never really played online because online wasn't really a big thing back in the day. So you had your, you had your friends come and play, come over, bring the multi-tap over or whatever, and you guys all played, and that was fun. I mean, I remember a lot of vivid memories of playing Time Splitters and just sitting back and watching my buddies play video games, especially going over to their houses and whatnot. I remember this one time, actually just multiple occasions that we would do, just go over to my buddy's house, Dan's house, right? And dude, it was just like, it was like every other weekend we'd go over to his house. And of course, none of us really had, I guess, a lot, our parents didn't have like a lot of money, so this is like the best like memories I have of high school, really. I know I get off topic a little bit, so just bear with me. We would go over to his house, and of course he lived in a like a, I don't even remember, it was a trailer, so I don't know if it was single or double wide, but I remember doing stuff like that. And we would go over to the trailer, and dude, this room, I'm not even joking, oh my gosh, it was no more than probably 7 feet wide and maybe 10 feet long. Maybe that's no joke. That is the size of his room. I mean, like, it was like there was just a mattress, and then of course there was this tall like dresser. It had to have been like this tall, maybe. Yeah, I mean, it was tall. I mean, this thing was tall. It had to have been like this right here, really high up. And of course, there's this little bitty, like 19-inch TV, maybe 20-inch TV. It had one speaker on the side. Okay, and like that was the first time, we'd go over there, and like it was nothing but we'd play PlayStation all the time. It was either Final Fantasy VII. That's where I first got introduced into Silent Hill, and it was like, wow. I mean, like, we would just sit back, we'd trade off the controllers every once in a while, and man, like, seriously, that was so much fun. Like, we would just sit there, and we'd be in this small little room. It was like 3 or 4 of us be, like, all piled up in there, and, like, playing this game, and, I mean, like, it would just be the best memories ever, just doing that, and it would just be, like, for hours on end. And so, and it went well off into the PlayStation 2, era and whatnot. Of course, that's all they really had was PlayStation 2s, and so they introduced me into the RPG genre and stuff. So I mean, of course, when RPGs came out, when I got introduced to them, like, holy crap, that's when I really went further into the rabbit hole. Of course, RPGs, they take quite a bit of time and to beat, and so I just went further and further, deeper until about college. Actually, I think it was like in my early 20s. I started thinking, man, video games are starting to ruin my life. Because, I didn't really want to go to college or anything. So I was like, I got video games. And when I did, video games were a really big part of ruining, my life. It was pretty bad. Like, I just know it was pretty bad. I don't want to get into a lot of details, but video games, did a lot of bad things. And I think that a video game addiction is a really major problem, I think, with gamers today. I don't think a lot of people take it very seriously, and I do think video games can be a drug, because trust me, that's why this is here. I thought, a couple of years back, I thought, what, I'm addicted to video games, and I was like, what, it's been 10, 15 years I've been doing this, maybe a lot longer than that, and I was like, what, I've got to have some kind of willpower to turn this into something good. So I thought, well, instead of playing all of these games constantly and submersing myself into a video game all the time to escape problems of whatever's happening out there, or just because I like video games, why not collect it? I started watching AVGN, the Angry Video Game Nerd, and I was like, you know what, he collects a lot of video games, and so I was like, wow, maybe I should do what he's doing, because I never really saw anybody else with a collection as big as his. I mean, that's when YouTube really was coming out. I guess, I don't know. I don't even know how old YouTube is, but I just remember he was like one of the first people I ever really watched, with all of his videos, and I was like, wow, his room is just filled with video games. That's awesome. And he doesn't really always play them all. He just plays bad ones. I was like, that's cool. I was like, you know what? Maybe if I did what he did, and since I'm addicted to video games, maybe if I just collected video games and I surround myself with them, but I'm not playing them as much. That's kind of how I thought. And it's weird, I know, right? It's really weird. I'm going on way too much about it. But that's basically how this all went. Is I was like, you know what? The systems, I had a Sega Genesis, and Nintendo, and of course, PlayStation 2 and 64. But the rest of them, such as a Saturn, an Atari, a 32X I have, they're all here. And of course, some are in that door that's right over there. I haven't gotten all my games out, nor have I gotten all my systems out. So they're all right there in the door, in the corner. Hence the Modern Retro Corner, right? Because I don't know, it's a little catchy title at the time. But yeah. So the systems, I've never really gotten to play all of them because I never got to own all of them, if you will. Because hell, I don't know. I just thought, well, what was it like to have a Saturn? I never could. Parents never had all that money. I mean, my parents never had all that money, much money. I mean, I never grew up rich, but I didn't grow up poor either. I grew up in a respectable household and everything like that. But, it was either, well, I mean, if you want it, then we have to work hard for it. So a lot of the systems I've never had, except for like maybe 4 or 5 of them, and then the rest of them it's like, hey, let's just buy them because of video game addiction. So, yeah. That's a lot about that and whatnot, but let's get off the subject of video games for a second, but movies, I really like movies. One thing I want to talk about, I know I keep messing with my table here, I don't know why, I just fidget. I'm very impatient. I keep switching stuff, and I can't figure out a good production, for my show. So if you guys notice me switching up all the time, that's because I can't keep something the same for too long for some reason. I really want to. Like, I try to figure out I'm trying to figure out where to go with my show. So I'm trying, like I said, I'm starting out. I think I got like 50 videos out, and most of them are the podcast or vlog, whichever you want to call it. So one thing I want to talk about, let's just get off all that subject. One thing I want to talk about is movies. Well, reboots in general. Okay, reboots in general. When it comes to movies, I want to be as positive as I can. Because especially like video games and movies, when there's a reboot, I want to say this because I want to start reviewing movies. And I want to start reviewing, I want to really go into like video games as a series. So I don't want to like start, I guess, like breaking down each individual core video game, and go, well, the technical specifics are this versus the technical specifics of this and whatnot. I don't really want to do that. I want to tell you guys my personal experiences with it, and I want to tell you that I do not like, and I want you guys to, hear this out. I do not like comparing the reboot to the original. When I go see a movie or play a video game that is a reboot of a video game or a movie, okay, I will, like, let's for instance say a movie. Oh God, what was that one? Total Recall. Here's a good example of Total Recall. I love Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger in it, right? But with the new Total Recall that came out, the rebooted version, I went in thinking, wow, this is going to be a movie that was, it's a reboot, but hey, let's just get it out of the way. Let's just go ahead and watch it, and let's see if it's as good or as, or better than the remake. But I told myself, let's not compare it to the original. Well, man, I didn't like the new movie. It was just so, I don't know. I don't know. There was something about it I just didn't like, and I don't know what it was. I tried my best not to compare it to the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, but that's all it kept coming up was, man, it's not like this. It's not like that. There were so many scenes that I could compare it to, and I was like, I shouldn't compare it to. So I went back a few years later, actually. I think it was a couple months ago. I actually sat down and I was like, oh, there's a director's edition of this, and a lot of people said that this movie makes it a lot better. They added some scenes in that makes the movie seem a little better at the time. So I was like, oh, so maybe it wasn't just me. It was a lot of other people that didn't like the movie. So I sat down and I was like, all right, let's completely cut all ties from the Arnold Schwarzenegger version of Total Recall and this Total Recall. So I sat down, I watched the reboot, the director's cut of it, and you know what? I absolutely enjoyed it. I was like, wow, this is a really good movie. I was like, wow. So, I mean, and I didn't try and compare it to any movies or to the original version. So, a lot of movies that are coming out, like reboots and everything like that, I try my best not to compare it to the original source. Because I want to make it its own standalone, movie. Because everybody just goes, well, it's not like this, it's not like that. Well, that movie is that movie. This is this movie. So, I don't want to compare it to this movie. So, like, when Ghost in the Shell came out, I wasn't about to try and compare it to the anime. I was going to make it its own movie. Yes, after a while, after I've watched it a couple of times, then I'll go ahead and compare it to the anime. But as its own movie, it was a good movie. I thought it's visually eye candy. It was amazing. I thought, movie-wise, I think Scarlett Johansson could have done a little bit better job playing, I guess, Makoto Kusanagi, but otherwise, it was a decent movie. Now, when you compare it to the anime, I don't think it touched the anime quite well, but it was a scene-for-scene shot of the movie, and, I think it did as good as what it can do. So, I think that's a start. I think Ghost in the Shell is a start for a lot of anime adaptation movies, So, I think it's a stepping stone, is what I think. So, but yes, comparing reboots to the original, no can do. I don't like doing because it just screws up everything, and I think a lot of people just go, oh, well, it's not as good as this. Oh, here's this. It's not as good as that. Well, it's not supposed to be. It's its own movie, so they can possibly continue it out. So, I mean, I don't know. I just, like, for instance, like, there's Turok, they rebooted Turok, one of my favorite N64 games. They rebooted it for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Well, when I got that game, I was like, well, let's not compare it to the original Turok. This is brand new. This is a reboot, so maybe they're trying to do something awesome with it. Well, come to find out, this game is hard as hell to play. It is super hard to do. But does that make it a bad game? No, it doesn't. Just because it's a hard game doesn't mean it's a bad game. And yeah, the reviews came out and it wasn't very good. And people get really technical about games. The frame rate sucks. I mean, when did everybody start really, caring about frame rates? I mean, don't get me wrong. Yes, I understand frame rates can be really bad when they get really super low, but I don't really remember it being choppy. Like, I know a lot of people are nowadays like, well, if it doesn't run at 60 frames per second, then the game sucks. Well, most games run at 30 frames per second, I believe. So it's like, okay, who cares? I mean, like, there's some, like, on older video games that, 60 frames per second would actually probably help the game out a little bit better, but for the most part, a lot of people, like, break apart a game, and they're just like, yeah, I'm going to just destroy this game just because. And it's like, man, some of the reviews for Turok it just devastated me. And I was like, no. So, yes. So, as you know, I probably can't talk, very well because half of the time I don't know what to talk about. And I talk probably too fast while I'm doing stuff, so I'm trying to slow down. And, well, that is it, I guess. That's a little bit about me. So, I mean, I hope you guys out there, get to learn a little bit more about me and, what I'm trying to convey to you guys. Old school games. I love old school games. I like the older stuff. I have a lot of fond memories with all those old PC games you know, I like playing all these games too, but it's the PC games that really, you know, suck. And I like to put those out there. I don't want to forget the plug-in plays. You know, I think there's not a lot of people who do plug-in plays, so I thought, why not? And I see some of you guys out there. You guys are commenting on, like, the Superman plug-in play. Thank you. You guys are awesome. You know, I think that was a really fun Superman game. And, you know, I do Pac-Man. There's another one I got to do, like the Shrek one. I've also gotten a request for the Spider-Man plug and play, which, you know, I will eventually get around to, and I think I need to get to that here soon. So look out for another plug and play review here soon. But you know, those really old obscure games, I like to put my own personal opinion on it, and I don't want to sound too scripted in my God, I went blank on my stuff. So and I don't want to improv the whole thing either. So I just don't want to sound like I'm like, hey, you need to watch, you do this, I am reviewing this. And so, if you guys don't see me on my videos, I'm very, very sorry. I am very time constrained. So, like, this right here alone is because I have, one, my kids are off somewhere in daycare, and my wife is asleep since she's a nurse, and you know, I have a little free time for myself, so I'm trying to get this podcast out and, you know, reviews. So when you guys see and hear me talk about games or whatnot on my stuff, then it's because, sorry, I'm time constrained until then. So, but, you know, I want to give a shout out. I know they're probably not ever going to listen to this, and if they do, you know, I just want to put out a big thank you guys to all of my subscribers, you know. Because, you know, you guys are watching, and all the viewers out there that do watch this kind of stuff. So I want to say thank you very much for, you know, watching this podcast, I guess, or video log. And I'm going to try and do a conversion where I can convert these and put it into a drive where you guys can listen to it on the go through, like, Google Music or do Apple and whatnot. I'm going to try and do that. You know, any help necessary, you know, any help is much appreciated, because I don't know a lot about all this stuff, you know, and like I said, time constraints. So, but I also want to give out a big thanks to, you know, GameSack, and I want to give a big thanks to Cinemassacre. I mean, you guys don't know how much you guys actually do for people like me, and I'm pretty sure everyone else. So, I mean, like, especially James Rolfe at Cinemassacre, you know, dude, you helped me out a lot through my video game crisis. You know, watching your videos, you don't know how much you do for your fans, just by reviewing your games and talking. And then GameSack, I see how you guys portray your games, and you show off a lot of these awesome games and stuff. So I just want to give a shout out to all of them out there. So thank you guys for listening to this podcast, and remember, this is the Daily Retro. I am Retro Mart, part of the Modern Retro Corner. You know what? I will see you guys next time.